Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 27 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're going to learn Fusion 360 or you're going to die trying. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That is straight up black coffee poured over ice. No sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your support and your encouragement that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to my Patreon account. Think about hopping on over there and hooking a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to teach you is what I consider to be one of the most useful and powerful tools in Fusion 360. It allows us to model things that would be very difficult to model otherwise. Now, a lot of this, what I'm going to be teaching you is how to use the Revolve tool. Now, a lot about becoming a successful designer is to look at what you're trying to model and develop sort of an eye for design. And remember a couple of lessons ago, I showed you how to use the Loft tool to create a complex, to sculpt a complex 3D shape like this funnel. And what you can see about this funnel is you can think of it as you're starting with a shape, you're starting with a two-dimensional shape, you're extruding that shape, but as you extrude, you're kind of going from one shape, like a square base, up to another shape, which is a round nozzle. And that sort of modified extrusion shape as you go up is perfectly handled by the Loft tool. But what we're going to learn today is we're going to learn a different tool, which is the Revolve tool. The Revolve tool is very powerful to model things that you recognize as being primarily devices with Z-axis symmetry. Imagine a shape that is just revolved around the Z-axis. And believe me, with this Revolve tool, you can create some really slick, complex models. Enough of this talking. Let's jump in and let me introduce you to the Revolve tool. So I need you to fire up your Fusion 360, get yourself a little sip of your jet fuel, and let's get ready to go. So I'm just going to kind of do some simple examples for you here to introduce you to the tool, and then yes, there will be a homework assignment. So let's just jump in. We are always going to start with a sketch. So I am going to come here with the sketch tool. I like to design in the XY plane, which is the red-green plane. So I will choose that one. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give myself a construction line. I've told myself I got to quit taking shortcuts. Sometimes I try to make these videos really fast and I don't do a real good job with things like dimensions and being precise about my position and location. I just start kind of drawing like a wild man, and I shouldn't do that. I should really be emphasizing good design practices. So I'm going to create this construction line. It is going to be 50 millimeters like that. Okay, then we'll go ahead and get that out of the way. And now I'm going to create a circle, which I don't want to be a construction circle. So I will, that was crazy. I am going to create a circle, and the circle, center diameter circle, and I don't want it to be a construction there. All right, so that should be good. I'm going to come out here, and then I'm going to go ahead and make this 50 as well, and then enter, and we should look over here, and we're fully constrained, and so that is really good. We are fully constrained. Now what I want to show you you can do with the Revolve tool is imagine a toroid. Okay, what is a toroid? If you think of an inner tube, like an inflated inner tube, that would be a toroid. That's a really complicated shape, but if you think about it, it is what? It is symmetric about the Z-axis. And what is it? It's a circle that is then symmetrically around the Z-axis. So what do we have? We have our circle. I'm going to finish the sketch. I'm going to come in here and say I'm going to create a revolve. And what I want is I want to revolve. Let's see if I can get a better view here. This kind of gave me a wonky view. Let's go look at it from the top. Okay, so I want to select a profile, so I'm going to select my circle. Now I need to select an axis. I want to revolve around this one. Actually, the way I drew this, I'm going to revolve it around the y-axis like that, and then I'm going to come in and boom, look at that. We created an inner tube or a donut, or for you mathematically inclined people, we are going to call that a toroid. All right. Now this has all types of interesting ways you can do this. So I'm just going to stop here and I'm going to show you some of the different things that you can do. One of the interesting things I can do is, instead of doing a full extrude all the way 360 around the circle, I could do a partial extrude, and you can see that this is revolved, or I said extrude, probably revolve is a better term. This is revolved. Let me come in here one-sided, and I revolved it 90 degrees. What does this look like? This looks like an elbow. Okay, we could come in here and do something like an offset or a shell command, or we could create another circle and extrude it, and we could create something like a pipe elbow. And so you see, this is a really, really kind of three-dimensionally complex shape, but you can see how easy it is to model using the revolve feature. Okay, we could do a partial at 90 degrees, or we could do a partial, and instead of one-sided, we could do it two-sided, and then let's see what happens there. So the one side we extruded at 90 degrees, and this one we could extrude at 45. And so you can see that now we're extruding 90 degrees here and 45 degrees here. Or what we could do is, instead of two-sided, we could just do symmetric, and now it is going to do 90 degrees one direction, 90 degrees the other direction for a full 180. Now I think it'd be interesting, let's just say a 45, so it's 45 up, 45 down for a total of 90, but it just kind of shows you some of the parameters that you can do. Okay, let's say I'm going to go ahead and say, oh, let me go back to something simpler. I'm going to go to a partial. I'm going to go back to one-sided, and then I'm going to go back to 90. Okay, and what am I creating? I'm creating a new body. So look at that. I've got this beautiful elbow shape. Okay, but now let me come in and let me modify my sketch. So I'm going to edit my sketch, and let's see if we can get to a right side up view. Somehow I'm looking at this thing crazy. Okay, that's almost a top view. Okay, now that is a nice top view. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to make another circle, and I am going to make this circle, instead of 50, I'm going to make it 45, like that, boom. And now I'm going to finish my sketch, get here where we can see, turn my sketch back on where I can see it, and now I'm going to show you another feature that you can do with the revolve. I am going to come up, I'm going to create a revolve, I'm going to select this profile, and then I am going to revolve around that same axis, which was my green axis, my y-axis, revolve around that. But this time, instead of making a body, what I am going to do is I am going to make a cut. Okay, and now what happens? Now I have hollowed out that tube, I've hollowed out that solid, and I have indeed created an elbow. I have indeed created an elbow. And so you can see this is just really pretty slick, the things that we can do here. And let's see, okay, let's come back and let's look at some of the other things here. I can say edit feature. So you see I can create a cut, which I did that time. I can create a join, and let me just sort of show you what join would be. That would be kind of like adding to an existing body. And so I would want to, let's just say I'm going to take this feature, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to revolve that, and I'm going to join it to my existing body. So I'm going to select my profile. Now I'm going to select my axis. I want to do a join. I want to do one-sided, and let's say that I'm going to go 25 degrees like that. And let's see what that creates. I think it might be going back that way. Let's see if I go minus 25, if that would bring it out. Okay, yeah, minus 25. Okay, so what I have done is I've extended this, but this body is going to be joined to this body. Now, in this case, you would have just extruded it. You would have revolved it originally the right amount, but I'm just showing you that you can add to something by doing a join. So we've done the join, and we have done the cut, and we have done the new body. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of that because that isn't too useful. But I hope you see what the power of that revolve feature is. Let's go on back and let me kill this and just kind of show you one more example of the type of thing that you can do with this. So don't save. And so now I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to design in the red-green plane again. I'm going to create a construction line. And so I will come out here. Let's come out 50 millimeters again. And this time I'm going to create a rectangle. And so I'm going to come from this. I think I'll do a center point rectangle. No, I'll just do a normal rectangle. So I'm going to come out at 50. And then and I do not want that construction type. Okay, so I am going to come and let's say I'm going to make this 20, and then I am going to make it high. I'm going to make it 75 high. And so then I'm going to enter. And so you can see that I have a rectangle. Well, what could I do with that rectangle? I could come here and I could create a revolve. And then I want to revolve again around my green axis, my Y axis. And you can see here that now I'm creating another pretty interesting shape, okay? You could come back and I'm going to come down to my lower, you can't see that, so let me turn this off. You see my little timeline. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to right mouse click and say edit feature so I can go back into that feature. I'm going to get a little sip of my jet fuel. And if we wanted that to be a cylinder, we could go on around the full 360 degrees like that and then say OK. So you can see that I made a cylinder. Well, now what you could say is, well, you could just do a flat out extrude circle inside of a circle and a flat out extrude. Yes, you could, but I want to show you using Revolve, you can get a lot more detail in your design. And so let's come over here. And let's see if I get a circle, and I am going to snap to the center point, and then I'm going to come out here and snap, and then I'm keeping this fully constrained. Okay, I like to trim things, and so I'm going to trim that, and then I'm going to trim that. Now, the reason I like to trim things is I like to trim things because I like to just extrude a simple complete face. And you can see when I deleted that line, I lost my point that was anchored to. So I'm just going to come in and be good and put a construction line here, and I think that should. Okay, then I will. Okay, now I will do a coincident, and I will make that point coincident with that. Let's select off. Let's do a coincident. I want that coincident with that, not like that. I have not done this in a little while, and you can see that I am getting out of practice. I think I want that coincident, and it's not giving me. Let's see if I get the midpoint. I want this coincident with the midpoint. Boom, that's what I wanted to do. And what am I trying to do? I'm just trying to be good about trying to keep this thing fully constrained. Still not fully constrained. Okay, I'll do a coincident between that point and that point. I'll make that's not coincident. That's the one I want. I want that to be coincident with that and fully constrained. Okay, guys, I've gotten a little sloppy about keeping my sketches fully constrained, but now let's say finish sketch, and boom, look at that. Now it is extruded a cylinder with a nice rounded top face. Do you see that? Look at that. Okay, let's go around, play around with this a little bit more. Let's do the edit sketch. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to come out here and I'm going to create a construction line. I'm going to see if I can be a little bit better this time. And so I am going to come up to 70 with my construction line. All right, now I'm going to come in with a rectangle, and I don't want a construction rectangle, so I'm going to come right here and I'm going to come in. I'm going to come in like 10 millimeters by 2 millimeters, like that. So now I've got a rectangle there, and I'm going to see, I'm still fully constrained. I'm going to see if I can just, I don't think I need to trim that off. Okay, I'm going to finish the sketch, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to turn the sketch on, and you can see that little feature. Let's see if we can get it. I'll say create a revolve, and I will take that little guy, and then I'm going to revolve him around the green axis. And then I'm going to go the full 360, and then I'm going to do a cut, and then I'm going to say okay. And look at that. You see how like I've got a little slot now that I've created in this thing? Okay, I've got a little slot that I've created in this thing. And so you see, and I'm staying fully constrained on my sketch. If I wanted to be a little bit better, what I would do is I would be doing parameters to create these things. But what I find is in the mechanical world, in the art world, you have a lot of free form things like this funnel that are just sort of free form, and you kind of look at it and eyeball it and create it. And for things like that, you use that loft tool that I showed you a few weeks ago. But in the engineering world, really a whole lot of very complicated things you could view as being a simple shape, edit sketch, a simple shape that is just revolved around one of the axes. And you would be surprised how many things you can design by thinking of them as a simple shape revolved around one of your axes. Does this make sense? I hope it does. And again, I find this to be one of the most useful tools that I use in Fusion 360. Okay, for these types of things, you use the loft tool, and for these types of things, you use the revolve tool. I hope that makes sense. Okay, guys, I am going to give you a homework assignment now. And what that homework assignment is that I want you to create a parameterized model. Now, what is a parameterized model? A parameterized model is where you don't type the numbers in like I did here, but you come up and you create parameters, and you create a parameter table so that you can go in and change any part of your design you want to get a completely new shape, a completely new design by changing your parameters. And I showed you a couple of lessons on how to do good parametric design. But what I want you to do is I want you to create a good parametric model for a, wait for it, terracotta flower pot. Okay, why? Because this is something that we could print on our 3D printer. And I want a good parameterized model where you can go in and just enter a few parameters, and you can create whatever style terracotta pot that you would want. Actually, this is kind of useful for me. It's sort of like, what could I build that I could really use? You know, I live here in Africa and you can't get things like little seedling cups, and so I thought, wouldn't it be slick if I could just print any manner of different little seedling cups based on a parameterized model? And so that is what your homework is, and next week I'll come in and I'll show you my model using parameters, using good parameters, and then I'll show you one of them that I printed. Okay, now remember, with parametrics, you want to use the smallest number of parameters possible, and you want to kind of create the right relationship between related dimensions. And so you could do this model, with something like 50 parameters if you want, but I'll just give you a heads up. I did mine. I'm going to see if I can find it over here real quick. I'm going to look it up and tell you how many parameters I did, which I thought was about the right amount. You notice it's raining out there. We've got a rainy day on the old River Nile here. And I'm looking up how many parameters that I actually used. And I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I used 5 parameters in order to define that. Okay, guys, I hope you're having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making them. We're kind of going back and forth between building our printer skills and building our design skills, and building our print skills and building our design skills. So we sort of learn about how to be a good 3D printer and then learn how to get more complicated designs. And so as we build our design skills, we have to increase our print skills, build our design skills, increase our print skills. So I'm going to spend 3 or 4 lessons on more Fusion 360 design skills, and then we'll come back and I'll teach you some more upgrades and things that you can do to trick your creality printer out. Guys, if you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to give us a thumbs up. If you've not already, subscribe to the channel. When you subscribe to the channel, make sure you ring that bell so you'll get notified when my future lessons are coming out. And guys, share these lessons with your friends. Share these lessons with your family, because the world needs more people doing engineering and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.